Ready to go, Colleen?
I'm ready.
In accordance with the open meeting law, wait a minute. No, I'm good. I'm not. In accordance with the open meeting law, the Lake Hopatcong Commission has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof delivered or mailed or electronically mailed to the following: a daily record posted on the Lake Hopatcong Commission website. Would you join me in a standing to salute to the flag and remain standing for a moment of silence for our lost Commissioner, Richard Zusch? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Is there anyone who would like to say a few words about Richard? Or?
I would, Ron. This is Mark Crowley.
Sure.
When I first became councilman, Rich, I think it was already in his 10th year as a councilman. I know, and Dan will back me up on this, I believe 2001, when the commission first started, Rich was our first commissioner for Roxbury. Rich was tireless in everything that he did. And he was always spending time for the community, a lot for Landing, a lot for Roxbury, but he loved the lake. Rich grew up, I believe he had polio as a child, which you would think would slow him down a little bit. Nobody could keep up with him. And I just want to thank that I was able to know him, know the things that he did, be able to work with him on this commission and a lot of different things in towns, and he'll be sorely missed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would echo Commissioner Crowley's comments. He's correct. Rich was on the commission from day one as Roxbury's first commissioner. And it was a pleasure to serve with him. And he was offered a lot of insightful information, was very involved, and was always on top of his game. And he's going to be missed. He was part of our, as I said in one of the emails I sent, he was part of our institutional memory, which is very important to an organization.
Yes, he was a good member. I only met him a few times, but he was a very impressive guy and knew a lot, cared. All right, can we move on to the roll call, please?
I'm muted. All right. Commissioner Crowley?
Here.
Fish?
Here.
Hopatcong?
Here.
McCarthy?
Here.
Wazowski?
Here.
Pravs? Steinbaum?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Tessier? Will Susan? Castellan, or sorry, Chevrest?
Here.
Gilfillan?
Here.
Hirschfeld?
Here.
Solaro?
Here.
Senator?
Here.
Smith?
Here. We entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So move.
Second. Is there any comments, questions, additions, deletions? Let's call a roll, please.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Fish?
Yes.
Hopatcong?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Wazowski? Wazowski?
Yes. Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I hear you now. Pravs? I just saw her come on.
I don't see him anywhere, but
I don't see her anywhere.
She's
She's muted.
page 2, and you're muted.
I don't know what happened to my computer. It's stuck.
We're approving the minutes of last meeting.
Oh, well, I read them. I approve.
Okay, thank you. Steinbaum?
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Gilfillan,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. We got the treasurer's report and a list of bills.
As you can see, we received our second quarter payment from the state of New Jersey for 125,000. Expenditures, there were 7 payments made, and we have a balance of $361,977 as of the 12th.
Just on that topic, before we leave that topic, Colleen, did you request the money for the first quarter of 2021?
I think our next one would be the third quarter, and I haven't reached out yet.
Please reach out because they're always, now they're past the quarter.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a full quarter behind, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Do they normally pay the quarter before the quarter or after the quarter?
Well, it doesn't, we're after now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
They owe us either way. I would say after because they first collected from Treasury.
it seems like.
And anybody, any questions on the list of bills? Can we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report and the list of bills?
So move.
I'll second it.
Any comments, questions? Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Crowley,
Yes.
Fish,
Yes,
Hoferkamp,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Wazowski,
Yes.
Pravs,
Yes,
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Gilfillan,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. If you got any correspondence?
Yes. So the land use applications are all online on the OneDrive account. We did receive just today an email from Higlin, which is Green Ponds Environmental Association. And they would, this was something that we had talked about last year about them doing a demonstration project of their sonar technology and the dash boats, the diver assisted suction removal that they use on their lake. So they reached out today to ask what dates will work for us towards the end of May. And I'll, reach out to some commissioners who might be interested in assisting and we'll set a date for that. The other,
Can I just interrupt? I'm sorry. I apologize, Colleen. Yeah, I received a personal communication from Charlie Oberman, who's on their part of their group now, and I volunteered to take him out. What we're going to try to do, it's kind of early in the year, what they'd like us to do is identify the areas on the lake where there's the most Eurasian water milfoil at the time. And again, I'm concerned it might be a little early. It may not, but the plan is to identify at least several areas that they can then survey and come back a couple of weeks later and physically try to remove. So I'll cover at least one of each of those dates for the commission.
okay, thanks, Fred. And just as a side note, this is a demonstration and not, a full harvesting program. It'll be just a day of removal to show how the technology works. The other correspondence we received was from the Musconetcong Sewerage Authority from Stephen Ratner. A copy of the watershed implementation plan was sent to him, and one of the projects within Roxbury was identified by Princeton Hydro to show that one of the pump houses between Roxbury and Mount Arlington may have an issue. So we're going to schedule a meeting and discuss how to proceed with that and if any repairs are needed there.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. The chairman's report. Okay, first I'll briefly, and because we're under litigation, we're not going to get into any details, but we did have another Zoom meeting with the quarry and their environmentalists and Fred and us and our attorney. And we made a little progress, not much, but it's ongoing and we're supposed to get back together again soon, right? Is that correct? Okay. The other thing is we had a Zoom meeting today at 4:30 with the DEP, and they clarified and answered a lot of our questions that we had about whether we took over the weed harvesting program or, what was going to go on. They did answer our questions. The main ones being, if we own the machines, they can't insure them, which we kind of figured out anyway. And a couple other things, but they're going to get back to us. They said that they would come to some agreement with us in writing about the building up in Franklin, that I guess we would be able to continue to use it. We might have to pay some rent on it or something. I don't know, but they're going to flush that out. They talked about the staffing and the staffing again. Anybody that is working for the state on their payroll cannot get out on the water if we privatize the weed harvesting, they cannot get out on the water with the machines. They can work from shore with the removal of the weeds and the disposal of the weeds.
Can they go out in another boat?
No, they didn't want them. Fred, they didn't want them to participate at all in the harvesting thing. So we'll have to see how it plays out and how our bid thing goes before we get to the next step that you're at now. Okay, let's just take a few steps at a time. We're making great progress. They've been very friendly, very helpful. They gave us good suggestions. One of them, which is my next item on my thing, is that tomorrow, Colleen, I'm going to give her the wording in the morning. We're going to extend the bid for one more week because we told them we had 3 contractors only that requested the specs. Colleen was going, maybe she did already, email him to the assistant director of DEP, assistant commissioner. And then they were going to try to be, through their connections, try to find 2 or 3 more vendors that might be interested so we could get make sure we can get somebody that, in case we can't use our machines this year, we don't use our machines this year, that they get up with a contractor that has machines and somebody that's able to work with us. So we extended it 1 week from next Friday to the following Friday.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, let me turn it on. Is the MOU still pending?
The MOU is, I guess like most MOUs, they are evergreen. In other words, they're still alive until you give them a new one. But they're also talked about, they're working with Treasury to get the machines transferred back to the commission. But that's through Treasury. It's not motor vehicles. It's through the Treasury. It's a slower process.
So if we privatize, hold on.
Looks like you're on twice, Ann.
I know. I gotta turn off my phone. Hold on.
Yes, please.
Oh, this is torture. Hold on.
Sounds like a rock show.
Well, if you didn't know, I can't power off.
Colleen, help her.
Yeah, I'm gonna remove that other one.
It's weird because her phone shows as mute.
That's my phone. I'm on both.
Yeah.
One of them
Trying to shut off my phone.
no feedback.
Okay, she's gone. The other one's gone.
Okay,
Go ahead, Ann.
Go ahead, Ann.
Is that better?
Yes, go.
Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't hear you now. Clarification, if we privatize, do we lose our crew and our
Excuse me?
equipment?
If we don't we can't use it until we have the title, which is going through Treasury. And if we have it, yes, we can use our equipment, and we can allow the contractor to use our equipment.
I think she can't hear us now.
Yep.
So
Are you there now, Ann?
Colleen, can you get me some audio?
um,
When I turned off my phone, I lost the audio on my computer.
can you hear us now, Ann?
Can you hear us now, Ann?
Yes.
Okay.
So Ann, I'm going to mute you because we're getting feedback from your phone.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to answer her question. She had a question.
Right. She wanted to know if we would lose the
Okay.
employees.
So Ann, can you hear me?
Yeah, but we can't hear her. She can hear you, but we can't hear her.
Okay, so the answer to the question is, if we use our equipment, the contractor can take those seasonal guys we had and hire him. He will have to pay prevailing wage, which is, we heard today as an estimate, we'll finalize it tomorrow, about $40 an hour, which is twice what we were paying them now, but they can be used. The public contracts law calls for all those contractors to pay prevailing wage. Colleen has to look it up on the Treasury website, and they'll tell us exactly what it is. So we can use that. We can let them use our equipment. They would hire the
Okay.
The
This is all
workers-
messed up. I can't hear you.
well,
Sorry.
all right. You know, Ann, she's muted again.
I muted her. We
Are
won't
you
get
all,
feedback.
can you hear now, Ann? All right. So for the rest of you, there's a couple of questions as about when we get possession of those harvesters.
Ron, that would mean that we have to cover the insurance?
They may cover insurance, but the good news is that we got an estimate from Ryan Gilfillan. I mean, a rough estimate. He talked to somebody, it was only about $5,000 a year, which is not a bad number.
For everything?
I don't know what the details are, Fred.
Well,
Let
I would
Ryan
say-
give Ryan will give a committee report, so let's leave it at that for now.
Yeah. All right.
So it looks like
Can
some
you
of
hear
our,
me?
Yes.
can you hear me now, Ann?
Ron, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Do you have the answer to your question, Ann?
So Ann can't hear us.
Okay, let her call me later. Let me call her later or her call me later and I'll tell her, just so we don't hold the meeting up. Listen, guys, we have to seriously think about giving up these Zoom meetings. Everybody else, every other public body I'm working for is meeting in public with the proper spacing. We can find a place big enough, even if we have to use Jefferson High School, that we can have a meeting where we're all sitting there, because this is,
Can't hear a thing.
so this is frustrating and we're not making any headway here. We're repeating ourselves all night long. Okay, so that's the end of my report at this point. So we can't go into any more discussions about the quarry because it's a pending litigation. And so we'll leave that be. We'll know more about the bids when we get the bids in next week and see if we get any additional bidders and if we get any update on what the ownership of the harvesters gets transferred to us. I think the rest of the questions have been pretty much answered that we had from DEP. Okay, so that's the chairman's report. And anybody, the Lake Hopatcong commissioners, don't do anything now, say anything now that you're going to give in your committee report. But if you got any other comments you want to make, you could save, or otherwise save them for your committee reports. Anybody want to be heard? All right, Colleen, you ready?
Yep. Okay, so I just included a new update here since it was kind of a busy month and going on in the background. I just wanted to make everyone aware. I did send this out and with some other updates that Commission finalized their application to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation in partnership with the Lake Hopatcong Foundation and with a lot of help from Princeton Hydro. Thank you. And so we applied for $480,650 in grant funds and an additional $490 in matching funds for a total project amount of $970,000. This is the first time that the Commission or any Lake Hopatcong organization has applied for NIFWIF funds. And the 3 projects that were selected were 3 stream bank stabilization projects, which will improve water quality and habitat, as well as engage the public through outreach, education, and citizen involvement. Projects have been specifically selected to mitigate the impacts of increased development pressures on 2 tributaries within the Lake Hopatcong watershed in a section of the Musconetcong River below Hopatcong Dam. The other thing I just wanted to let everyone know is that a bookkeeper has been hired. Her contract was signed last week, and I'll be transferring the books over to her beginning next week. That's it.
Okay. Ann, can you hear me? Ann, can you hear me? Okay. Lake Hopatcong Foundation, Mr. Kane.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Good to see everybody tonight. First, just let me say that on that NIFWIF grant, which I know was a lot harder than anybody expected, really kudos to Donna, who I see joined, and to Fred, and especially to Colleen, who somehow got it all together in dealing with everybody and did not like shoot herself or pull her hair out. So, I mean, I was really, you guys should be proud of what she did. I don't know if we'll get the grant or not, but that was a lot of really good work. I was very impressed just as a spectator. Just a couple of dates on the Musconetcong Watershed River Cleanup, which we do at the state park every year. Anybody that has a need to get out there with us, which would be really appreciated. April 17th at 9 o'clock, we'll meet at the state park. And we also do a roadside cleanup. We kind of meet over at the Nixon School over in Roxbury at 8:30 on the 24th of April. So if anybody wants any information, please call over to the foundation. They can give you a lot more information. And then our native plant sales coming up on May 22nd. So start thinking about how your garden could look so beautiful this summer. Also, I should probably just mention quickly, and I know Ron and Colleen will be both of these. The mayor's meeting is on the 20th, our kind of regularly scheduled mayor's meeting. And then we meet with the DEP the following week on the 26th. And those have been just really good methods of continuing, really helpful dialogue. And hopefully, Ron's seeing some of the benefit of that with the weed discussions. And I just want to mention, as we're talking a little bit about advocacy, our 3 legislators locally at the lake, Senators Bucco, Orajo, and Panaccio, have submitted a piece of legislation which could be, hopefully very helpful to us here at the lake and all lakes in New Jersey. We've been working on them. It's called Senate Bill 3618. It's only been in about 2 weeks now, and it would basically bring $10 million to public lakes in the state of New Jersey, and would guarantee both Greenwood Lake and Lake Hopatcong $750,000. While that is just a bill that's been introduced, and there certainly could be discussion about it, it certainly is very helpful. And it's there's a lot of commitments out there to try to get funding for the lakes this year, one way or another, into the FY22 budget. And I have to say, all 3 of those legislators and the 6 assemblymen from the 24th, or assembly people from the 24th, 25th, and 26th districts have been very helpful. So fingers crossed, more to come. But I think this concept of funding for lakes and not just the shore is really starting to sink in. And our friends at the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed have been very helpful, as have been a number of the environmental groups in the state, putting the spotlight on lakes. So hopefully more to follow. And my last thing tonight is, as you know, we've had a fairly extensive search for a new executive director over at the Lake Hopatcong Foundation, and able to introduce our new executive director tonight, someone that we're thrilled to have been able to hire, and someone that has a lot of experience in the field. I'll let him tell you about it. But with that, I'd like to introduce Kyle Richter that's on as the new executive director of the Lake Hopatcong Foundation.
Hey,
Thank you, Marty. Hi, everyone. Marty said, I'm Kyle Richter, new executive director at the Lake Hopatcong Foundation. I'm very excited to be joining the foundation team, and I'm excited to meet all of you and looking forward to working with you in the future. Just a little bit of my background. I come to the LHF after spending a little over 7 years at the Musconetcong Watershed Association as its watershed programs manager, working on community outreach and education and managing some restoration projects as well. So I've spent my career working in the watershed, and I look forward to making an impact on the lake as well.
great. Welcome aboard. We appreciate
Thank you.
all your cooperation we're going to have today and going forward.
Well, thank you.
Good luck.
Marty, I have a question for you. Is that bill a one-time bill or is that an annual?
That is an excellent question, Fred. And right now, 3618 would be an annual bill. But as a brief, the idea for it came from Senator Sweeney, who's the president of the Senate. And the idea would be to get it as an annual appropriation, but one that everybody knows will be in there every year. So, I mean, you can still have a governor, veto it in a given year, but it's the idea of establishing this concept that lakes are something that we can no longer ignore, that they will be funded every year. It's baby steps, and there's no guarantees that you're going to get funded every year, but let's at least get our foot in the door.
Good work, good work.
Now, there's a lot of people been working on it, so thank you, though.
Is that it from the foundation?
It is. I know it's hard to believe, Ron.
I know. Dr. Fred, you're up next. Princeton High.
Right, thank you. Now that spring is here, a number of activities have been going on. Colleen already mentioned about the NIFWIF grant application. We were very happy that that was submitted, and kudos to everyone in our team. Dana Patterson was the person who really made sure to keep everyone going on our end. So I think her, Donna, and Colleen were really the ringmasters to keep everything moving along. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that grant application. So just to give you an update on some of the existing projects since we're in spring, to give you some updates on the HAB stuff. So we're in the process of installing the third and final aeration system. This will be the one at Mount Arlington Beach. All systems, all three of these alternative nearshore aeration projects should be initiated and will be turned on in May. And this year we'll be evaluating their effectiveness in terms of addressing nearshore HABs. Also, we're in the process of working with the borough of Hopatcong to clean out the aquafilter units. We'll be filling them with biochar then and evaluate how the biochar will be removing phosphorus before going into the lake. We've also, I found out today on the 23rd of April, we will be replacing all of the existing biochar. So remember, we have 4 stream stations, we have 2 stormwater ponds, and then we have 2 stormwater structures. We'll be replacing all of it. The stream stations will be, some of them will be modified. They'll be closer to the lake or in the lake itself, because we found that, you have a higher removal of phosphorus in standing water as opposed to flowing water. So we're going to evaluate that. The other thing too is a couple of weeks ago, I had some staff go up and collect samples at the Memorial Pond biochar just to see how long the biochar is good for. And so that biochar has been installed, that was installed about 8 months ago. And not surprisingly, its efficiency went down. So it wasn't removing any of the dissolved phosphorus, and it was removing only 50% of the particulate phosphorus. And that's what we expected. So the biochar is good for about 3 to 6 months. I did this just so we have some sort of baseline of how far we can extend it. I'm hoping with the municipalities, what we'll be able to do is recommend, if we can get 6 months out of standing water, it would be nice that if the municipalities can install the biochar in the spring and then maybe remove it in the fall and then use it for, landscaping material. Maybe, depending on the load of the phosphorus, it might have to be replaced once, but that's what we're looking at for that. So we'll be continuing on those projects with the HAB grants. We're still waiting for the contract between the commission and the state for the new 319 grant. But because of some of the projects are sensitive due to time, we've initiated some of those projects. So for example, we started putting together the sampling plan for the 319 grant. In addition to that, we internally have had a couple meetings about developing that model we talked about with quantifying the internal phosphorus load coming up from the sediments. And associated with that, we started sampling early. So normally we start sampling in May. As part of the 319 grant, we sampled about a week and a half ago to get some early data in terms of deep water phosphorus. And starting in about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be finishing up the bathymetric assessment of the main body of the lake. So we're moving forward on the 319 stuff. We'll be starting our standard long-term monitoring next month. And I talked to the staff. We're well underway with developing the beach and park restoration plan for Mount Arlington. So they were out a number of times collecting some site-specific location. I had one of our engineers go up to look at some potential green infrastructure projects. I've done some pollutant loading modeling for the beach and for the park. And so remember that this is funding that's coming through the New Jersey Highlands Council that was awarded to Mount Arlington. We're putting this plan together, and then as part of that plan, we'll be putting together some conceptual design work for one of the stream bank projects associated with the NIFWIF. So it's actually a match for the NIFWIF grant. So we're well underway with that, and that's what's going on right now. So we have a lot of activities going on, and it will only accelerate as we move further into spring and then onward into summer.
Thank you, Fred. As usual, you're right on the money. Anybody have any questions for Fred? Okay, we'll move on to our updates, the state park update. Blanca, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, you're up.
So just updating with the harvesting, not a whole lot going on, but I believe they completed all the welding work on the machinery and the roof work on the buildings done. But other than that, that's pretty much what they're doing, just keeping up with the machinery.
Yeah, good.
Terms just with the dam, as we know, we're at minimum flow now, and it's probably just below the spillway, about 8.5 feet, a little more than that. Sewer project right now, they're done trenching through the parking lot, so that work's all complete, which is great. They're still working in the park. They're going to be going through on Lakeside Boulevard across to, I guess, where there's the gas station there. So that's going to be happening soon if it hasn't started already. And they're working on the buildings, the new bathroom, as well as some retrofits in the old bathroom. That's pretty much what's happening right now in the park.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mike?
And our office is available now in the building?
Yep, there is an office space available now. I spoke to Colleen about that probably a week ago. So, yep, that's all there.
Good.
Yes, and on that, I talked to Marty because the foundation had a couple desks that we might be able to take advantage of. So we just got to get some furniture in there, and then I can start putting at least the files back in there and working from there as well. So.
Yeah, so that's all good. And the electrical issue we had was They discovered some problems, but that's been resolved.
Great. Thank you very much. It's good. We're back home again.
That's it.
Okay. Josh?
Oh, can we go back to the water level just for a second?
Sure.
Chairman? I just want to point out a couple things, just with respect to the water level and the ice melting on the lake, just how fast this happened this year. If you recall, last month, I presented some pictures that were taken on Sunday, March 7th of ice creep, and ice was pushing around, and there was 8 inches ice out there, and we were ice fishing. That was Sunday, March 7th. Those pictures were presented on Monday, March 8th. By that Saturday, just 6 days later, the ice I observed to be free from piers, docks, and structures, cribbing, bulkheads, boathouses, etc. The main lake was not usable in terms of winter sports. So I sent an email that day to the state park folks to ask them to shut the gate. The gate was eventually shut after some email exchange on March 22nd. So I'm hopeful that in future years we can get a tighter grip on these dates and hopefully get the dam shut sooner, because I really do feel that, and again, this is a balancing act, and I realize there's a lot of data and information to be gathered, but I wish we could find a way in the future to kind of tighten this whole process up so that the spring runoff can be captured. I realize the concern about damage to docks and structures, but when it frees itself from the shoreline, piers, cribbing, and docks, in my judgment, it's safe to cut back to 12 cubic feet.
Yeah, and we appreciate your judgment, but we have to make our own judgment call as well, since we're ultimately responsible. So, we have to make that decision at the end of the day. And we appreciate your feedback and your observations, but we're doing our own inspections and observations and doing what we feel is the best for the properties that are on the lake and structures. So, that's the decision was made, and so we feel we made the right one. But we thank you for that, and we appreciate your time and your feedback, but we are ultimately responsible.
Well, I have to support Dan in his comments. As a matter of fact, I drove around the lake at the same day that I spoke to him and got out of the car and observed it in multiple areas. And then I called Josh because I couldn't find any areas that were really under threat any longer around the shore. So in my opinion, I agree. There was some wasted days there. I don't remember how many, but it's frustrating. It looks like we'll be fine because, as you stated, the lake is right now about 8.6 or close to 8.7 because of the recent rain and the runoff. So I think it looks like we're going to be fine, but still it's very risky when there isn't much rain to lose that many days. So we're trying to make sure that you do the right thing as soon as you can.
And just to be clear, I'm looking back. This is going way back into history when Bart Wallen was the state park superintendent. And again, I realize with every state park superintendent and the changing of the guard, you're going to have variations in procedures and interpretations. But I just suffice it to say that my family's property were right on the front lines. And if there was any risk of danger to any of the docks that are boathouses or structures that we own, or anybody else for that matter, I would never recommend that the flow be cut back. And it is a judgment call. I will freely admit that, but it's just something that I just think we need to pay very close attention to, because this stuff happens real fast and in real time. And it was 6 days. The difference in time was 6 days.
Hey, Dan, just a comment, this is why, I know you love having all this water taken down each year, and then you love to harp on us for not doing it quick enough. So, this is what I always say. You can't have it both ways. So that's all I have to say on this topic.
I'm not looking to have it both ways, because the conversation is always, let's change the plan, let's eliminate the drawdown. And I just want to be clear, again, I'm not faulting anybody. Please don't take this as criticism. I'm just saying that I'm just documenting what happened. And I just think that we need to pay very close and tight attention to this because it happens very fast. That's all I'm trying to say. Because in a span of 6 days, we went from ice creep to open water. That, looking at this historically, that's very rapid. It's usually much more gradual than that. But anyway, it's not meant as any type of, criticism. It's just an some observation and just some information for, next year, maybe we can look at it a little bit closer. That's all I'm suggesting.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. Josh, you got any updates here?
Yeah, we went by another CAC possible meeting. We're still waiting on the DEP folks to come back with the information from the scientists so that we can get back to that. So I keep asking every month, and hopefully one of these months they'll be ready. I know they're tied up doing a lot of other things at the moment. So as soon as we can get that, we'll get that up back on track.
Okay.
And other than that, I don't have any other updates.
Okay. Grant updates?
So I think we've covered all those between Fred and I.
Great. Committee updates, land use. Bob Tessier.
So I don't think Bob is on, but he did called me earlier this week to go over what projects we'd be sending to Princeton Hydro for review, for the stormwater review. And we did have a land use committee meeting, and Fred Steinbaum is going to attend one of the Hopatcong land use board meetings a month to try and remove some of that from my plate.
Great. Budget. Fred?
Wait. I have a concern about the land use. One of our responsibilities we assumed was the meeting of the New Jersey Clean Air Council public meeting, which is coming up in just, I think it's 9 days from now. And we sent a really good letter last year about our concerns, but our concerns have increased with the air quality coming out of Weldon Quarry. And we were supposed to meet again and prepare some documents that would kind of reinforce our concerns along that line. Colleen, is there time to schedule another meeting, or what do we need to do to prepare for this?
Quarry?
Council meeting.
With the quarry, Fred?
No, this is
No.
this is
This is, I'm sorry, Colleen, go ahead. You can explain.
the DEP's Clean Air Council is holding a public hearing about nuisance dust.
Okay.
And they've reached out to different stakeholders to provide comment on nuisance dust. So we were going to provide some comments. The comments are due on April 19th, and I think the public hearing is on the 21st.
Correct.
So I think one of our planners, Ken Nelson, is going to do some of the work on that. So I'll reach out to him tomorrow and see if he can move forward with, what information we gave at the last land use committee meeting.
Good.
We were hoping that the air quality there could be monitored, especially after one of their blasts, and just try to get some facts and figures about what's really happening with the air up there.
Well, Fred, again, I don't want to get into any detail, but our conversations with the DEP people, they're on to the quarry, they're on to the violations, and they're going to do something about it. They're trying to get us to settle with the quarry first before they step in. And that's so everybody's waiting. Now, if they don't settle with us pretty quick, then I think we'll take a different tact. But
This is a little different issue. This only concerns the air quality.
well, that's part of it, that dust coming down.
I think this is general for the entire state of New Jersey. They're looking for comments on nuisance dust. So I think our comments will be generalized about nuisance dust. So
Great. Okay, budget, Fred.
Yeah, well, the budget committee didn't meet this month. As you saw, we have where is it? $273,000 in our general fund, which isn't a whole lot.
Robert, how could that be? You just got $125,000 from the treasury.
Well, Mr. Treasurer, is that included in that amount?
I'm
Which
sure
one?
not.
The total cash on hand is 351,000.
That, I saw 361, but that included,
361.
yeah, that included the monies that were to go to,
The capital fund and grants, correct?
yeah, to grant. So that 100,000 of that is spoken for.
Yeah, so
about.
without that, it would be
Yeah,
273.
but again, does that include the new 125? Was that deposited? Is that?
Yes, it does. That includes it.
Yeah, okay, so my point is, my concern, and it's always the same one, we're just offering a contract to another part-time employee. It appears that the weed harvesting expenses are going to really exceed what we had anticipated. And I'm worried about shortfalls. And
Well,
so I just want to point this out.
that lake bill is most likely going to give us another 750,000.
You're such an optimist, Ron. I love it. I love it. I wish you were in there voting.
I'm telling you.
Okay, I hope you're right. So that's my concern.
All right. It's a good concern, but I'm just saying we don't know what the lake harvesting is going to cost us because we don't have all the facts yet.
And we do have the third quarter due us.
Yeah, and you got another 100 and a quarter coming.
The money's just rolling in, just rolling in.
Rolling in, boy, rolling in.
I'm completed with my report.
All right. Anything else, Fred?
No.
Okay. Todd?
All right, so currently we are in a strong cash position currently because we have just received the second quarter and we are going to request the third quarter of the 500,000 statutory funding. So I think we've covered that pretty well. We've also already covered that we contracted with the bookkeeper to free up some of Colleen's time so she can work on other things. And I guess my final comment is we're still trying to close the 2020 books so we can provide that information to the auditors.
Yep.
One of the outstanding items was Parks and Forestry had said that they were going to cover some of the weed harvesting employees or maybe the fringes and benefits. And we got a more definitive answer from them. And that's not going to apply to from when the pandemic started in March to the end of the year, but it would apply to fiscal year 2021.
So you're thinking for 20, was any of that money committed to us in writing?
No. So for 2020, we just need to do a final scrub of the books. We're not going to get any.
Otherwise, we could set up an accounts receivable and let it be.
Right, but it seems like it's just going to apply to 2021.
Okay, all right. We'll have a real good year in 2021.
Yes.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
We got the bylaws. Chairman Crowley.
Nothing to report. We haven't had any changes in the bylaws.
Okay. Planning, Dan.
Nothing to report. This is kind of a moving target, but maybe what we should do is set up a meeting. So I guess if Colleen, if that's something that could be done, maybe we should get a couple dates and set that up.
Okay. Yep. Public outreach. Ann.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yes, we can.
A miracle. All right. The Community Outreach Committee was formed late 2018, early 2019. And the purpose was to raise community awareness of the fact that the commission was broke and about to disband. We had zero funding and we desperately needed community response and pressure on Trenton. Then the summer of 2019 happened. Soon after that, the summer of Habs. and we had our community outreach went through the roof. The community awareness skyrocketed, and we were bombarded by the public, as was the state and our political reps, bombarded by citizens for accountability. How did this happen to our lake? The results were what we're experiencing now, some funding. I know we need more. But Mark and Eric, who are on this committee, as mayor and a councilman, continually reach out to their communities at their borough council meetings. And we urge every commissioner to do the same. As an educator, I work with the Lake Hopatcong Foundation that sponsors a field trip program every year to educate students on what a watershed is and how it works. And needless to say, most adults do not know. If you ask them what is a watershed, they don't have a response. So I always feel education works better than legislation when it comes to cleaning up the environment. The program through LHF, first year was 70 students, and the last year we were live, we had over 3,000 students. So that is major outreach, because these kids talk to their parents and their parents realize, oh, we all live in a watershed. Everything that's in our yard, if it's a pollutant, it'll end up in the lake and the river and the ocean. So I want to continue that outreach through education and through the borough council meetings. I don't know how we could expand that except to enlist all the commissioners to do the same thing in their communities. I work with Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, PTAs, educating them as to what is the watershed, what's polluting our watershed, what stormwater is. Most people don't understand that runoff ends up in the lake. It's been quite an adventure. So I'm open to suggestions as how this committee can move forward as a committee, or do we have to embrace all the commissioners in this effort to keep the community aware of what's going on when you live in a watershed?
Good job. Let's see if we can't help you. Give you a little support. Okay. Dan, your ice retardant, we're out of season now or what?
Yeah, we are. Well, we're out of season. And as I said, in 6 days, we went from solid ice to open water along the shoreline. I do think, as I was observing this, a lot of this was accelerated and exacerbated by some of the rogue propeller-driven devices. I would say specifically in the area of the River Styx on both sides, in the area from Sunrise Point to Sperry Springs, and in some areas down along the old Lakeside Boulevard. Just driving along in the car, you could see how those areas opened up quickly. So I think we should have another meeting of the committee soon, just to kind of debrief what happened this previous season. We started out with proposed ordinances that we wanted to put in front of the towns, and then there was some recalibrating of that, some rethinking of that. I know Commissioner Hofferkamp was an advocate and a proponent of more public outreach and education. I still think we need to do that, but it's never too early to start thinking about ice, because before you know it, it'll be November.
Yep.
And we need to be ready. So maybe we could set up a meeting and talk about the winter that was and start planning about the next winter, 21 to 22.
Have you got that sample ordinance ready to go?
We had it ready to go. We had submitted it, and I think we tabled it, and it was sent back to the committee for further refinement.
Okay, so Marty, couldn't we bring it up at the meeting with the mayors?
Absolutely. That's like a perfect thing to bring up there, Ron.
You get it as quick as you can, Dan, so we can get going on it.
Okay, well, again, I know Commissioner Hoppercamp's with us. I don't know. He was, as I say, I don't want to speak for him, but he was a proponent of more education and less in the way of tinkering with the ordinances. Brad, is there anything you want to say to elaborate on that?
No, I was just going to tell Marty that he may want to just run a few things by all the mayors and see what their reaction is. And,
No, I think that's a good idea because we've gone up and back on, I think we suspect the mayors may not want to go the ordinance route. And maybe that's a perfect time to just draw that out.
yes.
But yeah, let's find out and see if we can take another alternative if they're not going to do that.
And maybe we should solicit their feedback in terms of alternative, because there very clearly is a problem, and we need to somehow hone in on what can be done here. Because really, we see a lot of these things, they just run all winter long. No timers. I sit out on the ice in my own cove and watch several of them go all winter long. No timers, no thermostats.
If I could just add, oh, sorry, Fred, go ahead.
I thought Mayor Francis had an excellent suggestion as an alternative. He suggested required registration for all these units so that we'd always know if one was kept running, who was responsible, who the official could contact. And that way, there wouldn't have to be, we wouldn't have to ask to take any machines away or whatever. It was just an attempt to make them better controlled, with possible fine for which is on the books now, would not require a new ordinance, but registration, at least we'd know who to contact.
But one thing we could ask the mayors about is how, if we're not going to change or upgrade or modify the system, one question could be, how can we make better use of the system and the ordinances that are in place to get our objectives met?
Well, Dan, why don't we put a series of questions together? We can provide them to Marty, and if the opportunity presents itself, he can bring them up at the mayor's meeting.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And I just add that, one thing that we had discussed was during the state's revision of their administrative code, the DEP's revision, they had considered integrating some language about ice retardant systems. So that's another route that the committee could use.
I would ask Commissioner Ozowski about that, because I know at one point he said that they were in the midst of or about to adopt or reenact the code. I don't know, did they do that, or is there still time, or where do things stand?
We still have time on that. So as soon as I hear that we're going to be moving again on that, I will certainly let the commission know. But I do think it's a possibility to do it that way.
Thank you. That's all I have, unless somebody has any.
Okay, now the hottest topic of the night, Ryan.
Weed harvesting. Yeah. At the moment, there seems to be more questions than answers, but we get more answers every day. And as Ron said, we kind of got to put one foot before the other here to move forward. Ron, you touched on the RFP. I guess.
Yep.
Did we decide, is that going to go one more week, or?
Yes, we're going to extend it a week because they said they would try to get us some additional interested vendors who are experienced in weed harvesting in other lakes in the state, who they use.
Got it. Okay. Some good news. We're continuing to work on the cost cutting for the program, specifically on the dewatering and the disposal. Commissioner Crowley reached out to Roxbury Township for us to see if they have any land in town that we can use to help dewater the weeds. I had a nice conversation with the director of Public Works today, and he seemed really receptive to finding some space for us, and he seemed like he really wanted to help us out. So that was pretty encouraging. He was asking if any of the other towns were getting involved. I said I didn't know of anything. Personally, I haven't spoken with anyone, but that's something we should probably look into.
Yeah, I'll be glad to bring it up with the mayor, Eric, who's one of our fellow commissioners. So I'll bring it up because we might have something in Jefferson close by the water where we can dump and get them dewatered.
Yeah, if me and Colin have been talking about it quite a bit. And if we can have different locations where we can dewater these things close to where we're offloading them. And if we're working in Jefferson, if we could find some land in Jefferson that we could offload quick and get the dump trucks back so we can get the harvesters back faster. And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it'll help the overall efficiency of the lake in general.
Help us in the price of the dumping too.
Yeah, absolutely. But to touch on the only other thing is to touch on the insurance quote, Ron. The quote for 5,000. I may have misspoken when I told you about that.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's enough coverage for what we're going to need.
Can we set up a meeting with this guy?
I'm talking to several brokers. So we've had
If
some
you get
prices come-
somebody, or you get a couple want to sit together with us, we can go and outline the program so they
Yep.
get an understanding of exactly what's involved, so we can get a price that's, more realistic if you want.
Yeah, that's
I'll be
definitely
glad
a
to sit with
possibility.
him and we'll take the specs and we'll go, Colin, we'll go right through it.
Yep.
Okay.
But that's about all I got.
Okay, thank you. Any new items at the workshop we got, Colleen?
Yes, the Lake Hopatcong Foundation and Musconetcong Watershed Association are providing a harmful algal bloom identification and reporting training. It's on Saturday, May 1st from 10 a.m. to 12:30, and it will be held at the Lake Hopatcong Yacht Club. Unfortunately, training for this one is full and registration has closed, but I just thought I'd mention it so that, everyone understands. We'll have some volunteers who will understand how to use the handheld meters, the same that DEP uses, and report on harmful algal blooms. So we've reached out to DEP and they will be providing 2 of the Turner fluorometers, which DEP uses, and I think Princeton Hydro uses the same ones. We should have those in time for the training as well.
Great.
Will they be available to everybody who receives the training? How will that work?
Well, maybe I know Donna is on and she can interject, but we'll have the 2 meters. One will be with the foundation, one will be with the commission. And I guess, we'll have these volunteers who will be eligible because they'll have the training to go out and use the meters.
What's the date of that workshop?
May 1st from 10 a.m. to 12:30.
May 1st?
May 1st, yep. And, so if we get a call, either the foundation or the commission, we can hopefully use those volunteers to go out and check a location. And then we can call it into DEP if it's of concern.
Yeah, and I can chime in really quick that as part of the HAB grant from last year, every time we used one of our Turner meters, we collected a sample for the cyanobacteria cell counts. And so using that data, we developed a graph that equates the measurement on the meter with a cell count, which is important because those signs that DEP posts, whether it's an alert or a watch, they're based on cell counts. But, to do a cell count, you have to send it to a lab or send it to us. It takes us a couple days. The cells have to settle. You have to run the analysis. You have to put the data in the computer. So it may be a number of days until you get those results. The advantage of the meter is you can get real-time data. And the fact that we developed this graph that now I can tell you, based on that graph, well, if you have a fluorometer measurement of 20, that may tell you that you're at 20,000 cells. So I'll be able to provide that graph to the foundation, the commission, to everyone, and that can be used as a guiding tool. And this is what DEP wanted. And then the last thing I do want to mention is one of our scientists, Pat, he took all of our data, not just with a PACON, but we monitored a whole series of lakes in Mercer County. We did Mohawk, Upper Mohawk, we did Hopatcong. We pulled all that data together and we compared our fluorometer measurements to our cell counts to DEP cell counts. And it turns out that our cell counts were very similar to what DEP has in terms of at what level would you be an alert or a watch or something like that. So that made us feel comfortable that the methodology we're doing to do the cell counts is very close to what DEP seeing. So again, the whole value of this graph is, you know, a volunteer can use it, and if they hit a certain threshold on the meter, it can tell them, you know, at what level you would describe that relative to an alert or to a watch.
Will there be enough of these meters available to volunteers?
Well, DEP only has about a handful of them. So I believe they're making one available to the commission, one available to the foundation. Now, I could be wrong about that, but the meters will be available for use. That doesn't mean everyone gets a meter, but that means that these organizations will have a meter. If someone has an issue or a problem, they can either, you know, get trained on it and borrow it, or they can have maybe a representative go out with the meter and use it.
What do they cost, Fred, the meter?
The meters themselves are between, so the little ones, the handheld ones are between like $1,200 to $1,500 a meter. So they're not that bad. We just invested in a huge, very expensive one that can take measurements through the water column, and it's measuring all sorts of parameters. Those are really expensive, but the handheld ones aren't that bad.
Could I just interject here really quickly? So in addition to the meters that are going to be available through the DEP, the Musconetcong Watershed Association also has some meters that they received through a grant. So they're going to, you know, make them available to us as well when we need them. So I anticipate that we will have enough meters, but it would never hurt to have another one or two if we could get one.
Great, thank you. Anything else on the workshop? Okay, we're going to open the meeting to the public. We've got 3 minutes to speak, and we have anybody wishes to be heard or address the commission?
If you could just raise your, there's a little reaction button there at the bottom, and you can raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself and announce yourself. I don't think we have so many on that it's, okay.
Hi, my name's Lorraine Toots. I live on Cove Road in Ingram Cove. Also, Gary Mans is on as well. He lives in this cove. I recently moved into this cove, but I've lived on and around this lake my whole life. And as Anne mentioned before, she spoke of watersheds and storm drains. And what I've noticed is we have a rather large storm drain that dumps right out next to the beach where all the families of this community go swimming. Now, I know, if I understanding, and Gary can help me out here, they've all, and we all contribute to having our cove treated with chemicals for weeds. But as we know, the storm drains tend to dump out a lot of, bacteria and God knows what from the streets, from all the homes and the roads. And I even noticed the other day, I was over there and it's starting to look pretty ugly out of there. What I had noticed since the aeration system was installed over by River Styx, and it was always known to us my whole life as we've always called it the mud hole because it was so disgusting. And now last year with that aeration system, I have never seen that area so clean in my entire life. It's amazing. And I was mentioned it to Gary about the possibility, and I mentioned to Colleen, I sent Colleen an email that we would love to get the aeration system set up in our cove over here as well. Whatever it's doing, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And just for the sake of our little part of keeping the environmental issues under control with the lake, how would we go about doing this? What can we do to try and get the system installed over here? Is there a process? Maybe you can help us out, or maybe you have some questions for us as to what Gary has been doing so far with us keeping this under control ourselves.
Fred, can you add a little something to that? Because maybe one of our next grants, we can put it into the grant and
Yeah, so there's a couple things going on with that. So you're right that once the aeration system was installed in River Styx Crescent Cove, it did open up relative to aquatic plant growth. Now, to be perfectly honest, we saw that throughout the lake. So River Styx Crescent Cove definitely improved. And I know the dominant plant in River Styx Crescent Cove is Eurasian water milfoil. That species has very weak roots. So what may have happened was the aeration system helped to dislodge that plant. And that's one of the reasons why it cleared up. But the other thing too is we did notice throughout the lake in the second half of the summer, there was no harvesting at all last year, except toward the very end of the growing season. And yet overall weed conditions were not bad at all throughout the lake. So there's a couple things we're doing. Number one is we're going to do a aquatic plant survey through the course of the summer to evaluate, how effective the aeration system is relative to other areas that do have a lot of plant growth, to confirm whether or not it is specifically associated with the circulation system. Because typically most nearshore circulation systems are designed to keep the water moving to minimize and avoid the accumulation of halves. So before I would recommend you install an aeration system in Ingram Cove specifically for plant control, we need to confirm if that is indeed the case. And that's what we would be doing. The other thing too is, I know there is some Eurasian water milfoil in there, but there are other species that have stronger root systems in that area, such as curly leaf pondweed and tape grass. So if that area is dominated by some of those other plants, you may not see the positive benefit there the way you did in River Styx Crescent Cove. So the one thing I would say is we will be collecting data this year to evaluate that and confirm that. The other thing too is we could absolutely consider, another nearshore aeration project in a future grant for that area. I mean, Ingram Cove's one of those areas we've been trying to do some work in that for years. You mentioned, the non-point source pollution that comes in from the watershed. Well, a lot of that is, in addition to the bacteria, like you mentioned, it's nutrients and it's the solids. And so when you have a lot of solids going into an area like that, it makes the water depth shallow, and that means more sunlight hits the sediments. That means you have more plant growth. And so one of the things we've tried to do in that part of the watershed was we tried to get some grant funding to install one of those multi-chambered systems to collect a lot of that runoff before it goes into Ingram Cove. And so that's one of the things that we'll be looking at as well. Back when we tried to do that, we tried to put it adjacent to the stream, and that was a big no-no with DEP. But now if we look maybe a little further upstream on the county road, maybe we could team with the county to install some sort of structure there. So in terms of potential grant funding, I could see doing something in the cove itself. Maybe we, again, depending on what we see relative to plant growth with the aeration system for a full season in River Styx Crescent Cove, and what type of plants you have in there, that may be one of the solutions. And then the other solution would be to cut off the source of the nutrients and the solids, which is coming in from that stormwater, installing some type of structure up gradient.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to see how large that storm drain was, and the fact that it's dumping right out on the beach where all the children and the families all swim, which was a little concerning to me. But, the cove, I feel, I would love to do something in this cove to keep it clean and just, I guess cove by cove, we have to address these issues, but we would certainly like to be put on the schedule at some point, if you may.
Absolutely.
Hey, Fred, can we get anything with this stormwater drain? You said you had some others where you put in carbon filters or something. Does that, because I mean, when we get a good rain, the cove literally goes brown and it's all that silt, soot, whatever. It just flows right out of that storm drain. I don't know if they've ever tried to do, I know the plan was to do some sort of upstream catch basin, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work, or it's not being cleaned out. You know, I don't
Yeah.
know what happens when you get enough sediment. It's got to go someplace. Our primary, that milfoil is really a lot of what we get in here. We do get the eelgrass more towards the end of the season. And I don't know, there was something that was a project that was discussed in the beginning of this where they were looking to see if they could vacuum it out or something. Was that, they were doing a demo? Can we get in
So
on
they
that?
will be doing a demo of doing sonar and then hand pulling plants. They will be doing a demo in May for that. And that's another technique that could possibly be considered. And the other thing too, as you mentioned, you know, the carbon stuff, the biochar, that's actually, we've had a lot of success in terms of seeing the biochar clean up areas. And Ingram Cove may actually be a good candidate because it's not, it's sort of this separate little, cove that's cut off from the main body of the lake.
Yep.
And the other thing too is I just received a couple presentations from the company that does biochar. They're starting to play with using it and laying it over the sediments themselves. So I can talk to them about that. But one thing we could certainly talk about, and it wouldn't be that expensive, is to install some of the biochar in that area. It would certainly help with algae, and it would clear up issues with algae. Now, if it makes the water clear, you may actually get some plant growth. But what we've been seeing at Memorial Pond and Duck Pond is you sort of getting in this cycle where the biochar removes all the nutrients, the plants start to grow, but then the biochar removes some additional nutrients and then the stuff falls back down. That's what we saw at Duck Pond and Memorial Pond last year. But the biochar is something, even if we could, you know, again, I'll talk to the manufacturer because I literally just got this presentation this morning, how they're laying it over the sediments. If you're trapping the nutrients that are in the sediments, those are the nutrients that really spark that plant growth. So that's something we could certainly play with, but I gotta say that's pretty brand new and pretty experimental. But the nice thing about the biochar is it's not that expensive. And then when you're done with it, you can use it as landscape mulch, which is one of the reasons why a lot of the towns are really interested in the material between its green reuse and its low cost.
Okay. So could somebody come out and look at this drain? Like what would be the process to get something going?
Well, two things. So we're up at the lake on a pretty regular basis. I can talk to, you know, some of our field people and see the next time a crew is going to be up there. They can at least take an assessment of the catch basins. Now, again, keep in mind that in the past we tried doing something parallel to the stream, but because of permitting issues, that was a problem. If we go up on the road itself, that's something that could be doable, but now you're talking about a county road. And I mean, obviously you would have to get the county involved, but the one thing we can do is take a look at that existing catch basin and see what condition it's in. Because I mean, a couple things were thrown out there. One is it may just need to be cleaned out on a more routine basis. But the second component is if it doesn't have a drop inlet, if it's just a standard catch basin that lets water in and water out, that all it's doing is moving the water, it's doing nothing to remove solids or remove nutrients, then a different basin would need to be installed. And that's where you're talking about more sort of grant funding and a larger project and you obviously want to get the county involved in that as well. So the first thing we need to do is take a look at it and see what condition it's in and what type of basin it is.
Okay.
But I know Ingram Cove it was in the original restoration plan and it's in the existing plan. It's something that we've always seen as a site in need of some tender loving care.
One thing I'll add in, and I did respond to Lorraine's email. So, you know, the commission had reached out to Art Smith to ask that somebody from Ingram Cove attend the rain garden workshop. And I don't know if anybody did do that, but, you know, a project that's identified in the watershed implementation plan is a shoreline buffer, a vegetated buffer along that shoreline. So, you know, maybe you could reach out to Art and find out if anybody attended that workshop, if there was a design that was put together, and, that can be another project that we could look at.
Okay. And what was the workshop?
A rain garden workshop. It was through the HABS grant. It was a workshop that was offered to anybody in the watershed who was interested in installing a shoreline buffer or rain garden on their property. And they can, rain gardens can filter out about 80 to 90% of the nutrients.
Your fertilizer. But they also gave you $425 for doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
That's an
can
offset.
receive a rebate.
I'm emailing him literally right now.
Okay, so I think this is a great conversation, but one that we can move offline so that, we're not taking too much of the public time here.
So
Okay.
great. Thank you very much. I really
Yeah, much
appreciate it.
appreciated.
Anybody else in the public?
Hi, it's Donna McCallie-Holly from the Lake Hopatcong Foundation. I'm actually talking on behalf of the foundation today and not as a private resident. Anyway, I just wanted to extend my thanks to Commissioner Pravs. She did register to participate in our HABS training. And as Colleen mentioned, we're doing this in partnership with the Musconetcong Watershed Association. And if any commissioner is interested, there is likely to be no shows. We have about 20 people registered so far. So if you think you can spare a few hours over the course of the growing season to volunteer to become a HAB monitor, as I'll call them, please, I encourage you to reach out to me, because everybody that does a little bit, and I'll direct this to the folks in Ingram Cove. I mean, shoreline plantings don't sound like a lot, but every little bit that we do to make a difference in the lake helps to improve the water quality. As Ann alluded to, this is what we teach the students in our Lake Hopatcong Foundation field trip program. Every little bit makes a difference, and everybody here on this call today can make a difference. So thank you very much. I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you, Don.
Wait, Ann's going to this?
Ann Pravs is registered to participate as a HAB training, to volunteer for the training on May 1st.
Okay, so does that mean she's going to teach, or she's going to know how to do?
Ann Pravs,
Yeah.
she's going to be trained on how to monitor for HABs and report it to the DEP.
Sweet.
Use
All
the
right.
meter.
Can I just invite her over and she can do our cove?
You could ask her. She's right on this call.
Bring the dog. I'm all good.
Hey, Donna.
Yeah.
Good idea, Gary. That's thinking.
Okay.
Hey, Donna, just to follow up on that, before the meeting, I'll make sure to forward to you and the commission. I'll take that graph that we have, and I'll provide you with a little table to show whatever reading you get on that meter, what it equals to in terms of the HAB alert levels relative to DEP. Now, obviously, only DEP can use that for regulatory reasons, but that information can be used for educational or management reasons. But I think that would really help you and the watershed, Musconetcong Watershed Association, in terms of, okay, well, what if we get a value at Lake Hopatcong of 20? What does that mean? So I'll make sure that you have that information.
You already gave it to us, Fred. We're good.
Okay, I was just going to make it like a nice, simple,
Oh, okay.
simpler thing.
Simplify it for me. That
Okay.
would be great for trainees. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'll close the public portion. We got any action items?
None tonight.
We don't need an executive session. I'll
Well-
entertain them. Go ahead.
No, that's up to you. I mean, we do have a small update we could share, but if I think a 5-minute executive session would be okay, would be useful.
We're not going to get into any of that potential litigation because they're having conversation.
Yeah, I think just 5-minute update.
Excuse me?
I think just a 5-minute update of people, look, guys, it's 8:26. That's like our
I'm just going to
earliest
tell
ever.
you, they cautioned us about details. The minute you tell 2 or 3 people, any of those details get out
No,
there.
in executive session.
I get that, Colleen, but the people that get the information, if they get it out there and it gets back in part of this suit, they're gonna slam the door in our face. So you don't, it's about, I went through what's.
I just think, why don't we just do this in executive session? Right?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
And I think it's helpful, you know, to the public, there will be no action taken after the executive
No,
session. Will just be,
They were just gonna
right.
adjourn.
So there's nothing really.
Motion
for
to
you
go
hang
to
around
executive
for.
session.
So moved.
Make a motion.